Fauci. So what's it going to be? Trump lies that could kill, or breaking free and telling the truth? Some staunch Trump allies seem to be breaking free. Some of them finally seem like they're saying, we're tired of people dying because of Trump's lies. Now no more need follow suit. More need to shout from the rooftops. We're tired of this. It may be the only way to save lives at this point. Leading off our discussion tonight, our co-authors of the new book, I Alone Can Fix It, Donald J. Trump's Catastrophic Final Year, Carol Leonnig and Phil Rucker of the Washington Post. Congratulations to the two of you on a remarkable book. Let me start with you, Carol, because there is an alternate universe in which Donald Trump could have and should have taken credit for some fascinating things, including a vaccine that was developed in part, in some cases, because of help by the U.S. government. He didn't have to be the guy who's at the head of a group of people who are vaccine skeptics. What happened? What happened with Trump and being able to say, I can do this, I can lead us, I alone can fix this, into the Trump that fixed nothing?
You know, Ali, his alternate reality, the one he's living in, the one he talked about at length with Phil and with me when we visited him and interviewed him at Mar-a-Lago, has only gotten more hardened over time. Anything that doesn't help him has to be false. It's interesting, too, because it's particularly perverse to have someone not taking credit for the vaccine they pressured everyone to deliver, which
right.
Donald Trump did. He deserves some credit for that. But it's also perverse now to link the distrust of the election among his supporters, which he sowed and stoked for months, to encouraging people to distrust a vaccine that could save their lives. You know, what we found in our reporting about Donald Trump's final catastrophic year for our new book is that many, many people who were giving him expert advice at the time, insiders in the medical community, were literally pulling their hair out in fear, in near panic about him resisting their good guidance. And they were shocked the degree to which he put American lives in peril for his own political benefit. And it sounds a little bit like by linking election and vaccination distrust, he's linking these things for his political benefit again.
Phil, I'm trying to remember back to last spring and sort of the moment in which I realized Trump was going to end up on the wrong side of this thing. Early on, when we had sort of numbers of people vaccinated in either the single digits or low double digits, an excerpt from your book in which you write, Trump did not want sick Americans landing on U.S. soil, even if they were working for the State Department, or else the government would have to report a rise in infections, and that would make the public, the voters, nervous. The president was always thinking about the political ramifications for himself, even in a crisis. And, we remember he was at the CDC in Atlanta. There was a ship docking that had infected people, and he didn't want that to happen because he said it would double or triple our numbers of COVID people. The scientific community understood that this was going to triple and double and multiply because this was going to be a pandemic. The president seemed to, in that moment, make a decision. This was politics over pandemic.
That's exactly right, Ali. And that was the president's mindset from day one of the pandemic. Remember, even before anybody used the P word and called it a pandemic, Trump was downplaying the coronavirus, saying it would disappear, saying it could go away with the warmer air, saying it was totally under control, his words. And then when people started getting infected in the United States, he tried to limit the number of tests. He didn't want those people, as you mentioned, who had been in China from coming back to the United States right away because he was worried that the number of infections in the U.S. would go up and that would somehow weaken his political standing. But what he didn't realize in the moment when he was trying to survive each news cycle day to day was that the compounding gravity of the coronavirus situation was creating an untenable political situation for him heading into his reelection. I mean, he, by all accounts, according to our reporting for this book, and we talked to, by the way, 140 senior administration officials, Trump failed at managing this pandemic. And then, of course, he failed also at managing race relations in this country.
So let's just stick with this, with the pandemic failure for a second, because it wasn't just scientific experts who were advising against this. There were some political experts who were suggesting he should take a different approach. From your book, Carol, I'm not going to do it, the president told his team, referring to an executive order mandating masks. Trump pollster Tony Fabrizio said that even if the executive order idea was a no-go, Trump could still help himself politically by putting a mask on his face. Wear a mask, Fabrizio counseled the president. Voters don't think you take it seriously. And he says, people tell me it makes me look weak, Trump replied. People see Biden and he's always wearing a mask and he looks weak. People tell me it doesn't look presidential. So all of those things that continue to exist now, because I saw a movement here about free our children from unmask our children or something. This mask thing, Donald Trump could have in the early days put an end to it. Is it as simple as the fact that he thought it makes him look weak?
You know, what's interesting about that moment, Ali, is that the president, when he said at the time, people tell me, what he really often was meaning was, I feel that I look weak. I will tell you that we learned in our reporting that the chief of staff, Mark Meadows, at the time, counseled the medical advisors and the political advisors, no way, he can't wear a mask. He's already dug in on this. He can't do it because his base will basically rebel. But Donald Trump himself believed that he looked weak, and he told Phil and I that about the importance in his mind of looking strong, looking healthy, looking impenetrable. That was important to him. The other thing that's very sad about this moment is that Robert Redfield, the CDC director, it's one of his greatest regrets. According to our reporting, he repeatedly tried to get the president, and ultimately, when failing to convince him, he tried to get the president's physician, Sean Conley, to convince the president for his own safety. Just that alone, wear the mask. But Redfield knew and told Conley and told aides, if the president would wear the mask, we will literally save hundreds of thousands of lives. And the president wouldn't do it.
And yet this continues today. So the stuff that we're talking about, while it feels like ancient history, it was last spring. Just today, Anthony Fauci was testifying before Congress, the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor and Pensions, and he got into it once again with Senator Rand Paul, a man with medical education. Let's just play a little of what happened between the two of them today.
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly, and I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about. I totally resent the lie that you are now propagating, Senator. You are implying that what we did was responsible for the deaths of individuals. I totally resent that. And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
So, Phil, that stuff that started then continues today. We talked about Steve Scalise getting an injection. We talked about Hannity telling people to take this seriously. It is July of 2021. These decisions were being made in March and April of 2020, and they just have it's like a German cockroach. It just keeps on going.
That's right. And what an incredible exchange, by the way, today between Dr. Fauci and Senator Paul. And it underscores the degree to which President Trump succeeded last year in making Anthony Fauci a political punching bag for his conservative base. You know, Fauci, a career government scientist, had one objective through the year 2020, and that was to save lives and get America out of this pandemic. And yet Trump, in part, according to our reporting, because he was so jealous of Fauci's popularity in public opinion surveys, tried to bludgeon Fauci, tried to tar him in the minds of his Make America Great Again followers. And you see that continuing today, where Republican lawmakers, as you saw there with Senator Paul, are going after Fauci, trying to discredit him, trying to lay blame in his hands for some of the deaths in this country, even as Fauci is trying to do, by all accounts, the right thing and keep this country safe and, frankly, get people vaccinated so that we can move on.
As I say goodnight to you, I want to leave our viewers with one more excerpt from your book because I think it answers a question a lot of people have. The interview, he said, was a great honor. He offered to do another if we needed to ask anything else and shrugged off the mention of how many hours he'd already spent answering our questions. I enjoyed it, actually, Trump said with a twinkle in his eye. For some sick reason, I enjoyed it. Carol